is presenting two. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 1889 will help facilitate the expenditure of previously appropriated Prop 1A funding for projects on the high-speed rail system's bookends. That is including the electrification of Caltrain, a vital transit project on the peninsula and in the South Bay region. The analysis does an excellent job covering the background of the bookend funding issue, and I know that this committee has been closely following it via your role in providing legislative oversight, so I'll focus on what we're seeking to achieve with this bill. As noted, there is ambiguity in how the High-Speed Rail Authority is able to proceed with submitting funding plans in order to commit bond funds for these projects. AB 1889 simply clarifies one important provision of the plans, the, quote, suitable and ready clause. It says that the bookend expenditures are suitable and ready for high-speed train operation and can be funded as the legislature intended in the 2012 budget appropriation. That was SB 1029. This will allow for the near-term mobility benefits in the Caltrain corridor and in the Southern California bookend to be realized. I have a representative of Caltrain with me to speak to the bill today.
Speakers in favor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt Robinson on behalf of Caltrain. We're the sponsors of this legislation. AB 1889, as noted in the committee analysis, would help facilitate the distribution of $1.1 billion in funding in Northern and Southern California, known as the bookends, consistent with the commitments that were made by the legislature in 2012 to the passage of Senate Bill 1029. $600 million of that aforementioned $1.1 billion is proposed to fund the electrification of the Caltrain corridor between San Francisco and San Jose. It's infrastructure that will ultimately be used by high-speed rail trains as part of the blended system. In April 2012, Legislative Council issued an opinion that the blended system, as proposed in the authority's business plan, would meet the requirements under the Bond Act for the usable segment. One of those requirements is that the investments made must be suitable and ready for high-speed train operation. This bill would clarify that early investments in the bookends would be suitable and ready for high-speed train operations when the system reaches the bookends, while allowing systems like Caltrain to use the infrastructure in the near term. We have been working with agencies in Southern California to make sure that these investments also help facilitate the expenditure of the $500 million that's proposed down there. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions by anybody? Other witnesses?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. I'd like to associate myself with the previous comments and just add that this is exactly what we were hoping to have happen under this project. It's actual work. It's going to go into putting thousands of construction workers on the job, help the local economy, and help the environment, and get this project well on its way. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members.
Wait a minute. Senator Galgiani, did you have a question, please?
Sorry,
Senator has a question. Hold on.
Yes, I'm probably going to have several as the author of the high-speed rail bond measure.
Okay.
And I was part of all of those discussions that happened back in 2009 or so when former Director of Caltrain, Bob Doty, as you will recall, got permission from the federal government to run a high-speed rail line within the existing Caltrain corridor as part of the system, and that same permission was granted to Southern California for their alignment as well. The way that we crafted the bond measure was to ensure that if money was going to be spent, it would be absolutely part of the high-speed rail system and connected with it and part of it. And we wouldn't allow for the money to be used for a regional rail, commuter rail, if you will, that's called high-speed rail if it's not connected and part of the system. We have to be very cautious about how we amend Prop 1A, and there was always concern that we wanted to be certain that the money wouldn't be used to upgrade Caltrain and then we would never be able to connect it with the high-speed rail system. There's been a great deal of opposition, as you know, to high-speed rail in the Bay Area because of the looks and this and that. And I don't mean to diminish that, but that is the reality. But the other reality is that that money is intended to be part of the system. So my concern is that a brand new definition of deemed suitable and ready might mean that they can use the money even though it's not going to be part of an actual system. Because what happens if, for example, the high-speed rail authority decides that they're going to use the money that we have and continue to Bakersfield, for example, and make that the priority, and maybe there's not the money available right away or in the near future to continue from Gilroy to connect to the Caltrain, then what happens? Is it that this bill is coming forward because the goal is really to make sure that no matter what, Caltrain gets the money, even if it's not going to be part of the high-speed rail system? Sorry, I know that's a...
Thank you very much for the question, Senator. I'm going to turn to Caltrain to give a little bit of perspective on the nexus with regard to the blended system and the import of these early investments in accommodating high-speed rail, the potentiality of that, if Matt wants to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Mullin, and thank you, Senator Galgioni. I want to be 100% clear that our intention is not to circumvent the Bond Act in any way. I mean, you were instrumental in drafting that back, going into the early 2000s and ultimately to 2008 when it was passed by the legislature. But you also know that that's a very tricky body of law to navigate through. And we are going to ensure that any of the investments that are made as part of the $600 million that was committed by the legislature will be able to be turned over and or used at the same time by high-speed rail. And really we're talking about the overhead wiring that will be used on the electrification for the Caltrain corridor, and then the investments in Southern California are still coming together, but they would have to follow the same restrictions on the money. They couldn't just spend it willy-nilly and then have to tear it all out when it was time for high-speed rail to approach. We would need to make sure that that is something that can be used for a true blended system.
Because that is what would happen. You would have to tear it all out. I mean, there are very clear specifications on, there's certain curve radiuses that if they're too sharp, you cannot run the high speeds. Also, there's the fact that the diesel trains are about twice the weight of a high-speed train. So there's a lot of considerations that are beyond my scientific knowledge that I want to be very clear that that Prop 1A is respected. It was not a lot of money. It was $9 billion that was left after the $950 million that was already taken for regional and passenger rail. It leaves us with just $9 billion. That's it.
If I may, Senator, I think Caltrain and high-speed rail would both be happy to come in and talk to you a little bit about how we're planning on moving this system forward together so that all of the infrastructure, the rolling stock, et cetera, works for both systems.
Is there anybody from the High-Speed Rail Authority here today?
Yeah, we have one representative, Senator. Just a second. We'll get him come down here. Okay. Senator, you had a question for the High-Speed Rail Authority, or?
Yes. Has the High-Speed Rail Authority taken a position on the bill? And hopefully you heard the questions that I raised with regard to Prop 1A.
I did, Senator Galgiani. This is Barbara Rooney representing the High-Speed Rail Authority. The authority does not have a position on the bill, and I do appreciate your question, as it would be a concern for the authority as well. In terms of trying to advance the investments made in 2012 by the legislature, we are supportive of seeing the necessary changes be made to the statutes to, allow for the directive made by the legislature through those appropriations. In terms of working with Caltrain to ensure that the investments that are made with that $600 million do in fact conform or adhere to the requirement that they will lead to eventual high-speed rail service in that peninsula corridor. We continue to work with Caltrain on that very issue. It's an active dialogue, and we're committed to working with them to make that happen.
One of the other concerns that I have, and I'll share with the author and the members, is that while we for a long time have wanted to see Caltrain connected with the high-speed rail because we can see how that would work, my other concern is because this bill addresses Southern California, correct? Because there have been some commitments to grade separations, underpasses and overpasses, or at least one in Southern California. it seems as under this bill, the way that it's written, that if the money is used as planned today to move from the Central Valley, connect with Gilroy, and up to San Jose, Santa Clara, connect with Caltrain into San Francisco, that's something I'm supportive of. But what happens if, under this bill, then, any projects that are grade separations in Southern California, if they're ready to go before the main money is ready to be used on this alignment that connects with Caltrain, it seems that under this bill, even a couple $1 billion could be used for grade separations, for example, that are ready to go because they're in the bookend, but they're not actually connected with the high-speed rail system in any way at all.
Yeah, I appreciate your concern. And in terms of addressing the needs of Southern California versus the $500 million going south under the 2012 MOU versus the $600 million going to the electrification project, they are absolutely two separate projects, kind of on different tracks, and they actually all have different issues that I think are exclusive to those projects in terms of meeting the requirements of the Bond Act, the provisions of the D plan. So they all absolutely sort of have different, while a project may be teed up and ready, you know, for example, the Caltrain project, you know, they've already gone through their environmental, and I'll let Matt speak to how far along they've come, but they are pretty far along in the process. And again, there are a few projects in Southern California, as I understand, grade separation projects that are moving along quite nicely. But in order to meet the funding plan requirements of a SoCal project are actually different than the funding plan requirements in Northern California. I hope that helps provide a little more clarification.
There isn't enough money to do both. There's, as you know, there's enough money to either get to Gilroy and connect with Caltrain, or to continue to Bakersfield and head that way, or do something in Southern California. We are far from having enough money to do all of it. So the concern is that if bookends are both ready to go, and there's nothing to connect them, it's not a high-speed rail system. It's not a system if we have a grade separation in Southern California, and we have Caltrain, and then we have a stranded system, if you will, in the Central Valley that's not connected to any job center. Then you've got pieces, but you don't have anything that's whole. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to support the bill today.
All right. Any other, I guess I'm the only one here. The only point I want to make is that, you know, we have a tentative plan in Santa Clara County for our half-cent sales tax. Will be on the November ballot. And I think we got a $1.1 billion for Caltrain to go all the way to Gilroy. We want to complete the project. You know, we're kind of no nonsense. We just, you know, we got to do it. We got to do it. So we're going to go do it all the way to Gilroy. And we want to connect to the high-speed rail and any lines that go to other counties, you know, Monterey, other kinds of counties. So we're pretty much on schedule to do all those projects, pretty much. That's what we're doing. And we should get it passed. You know, polls look good, I hope. So you're not going to make a motion, right? Okay, we'll wait until we have a member that can make a motion. Okay, thank you. Okay, Assembly Member, you're presenting on behalf of your colleague. Is that understanding? Is that correct? So you're presenting AB 2441?
Yes, thank you.
You have the floor.